everybody. Welcome back. Wow, it's the yard sign. It feels weird. We haven't been here in a little while, mostly due to my fault. Got sick, got the Christmas bug last week, and so unfortunately we had to cancel the show. But I'm hoping to make up for it with today's show because we've got a huge show. I've even got a collared shirt on, trying to look fancy for y'all. Didn't get time for a haircut, but that's okay. We'll work on it for 2020. Anyhow, we got a huge show for you today, which means a huge cast, and man, is there no shortage of stuff to talk about, and we're going to try to squeeze it all in because it's the holidays, and we got family in town, friends in town, lots going on, and so what was that? Oh my God. All right. Anyways, we're going to go ahead and get this thing started. Before I go ahead and turn the cameras and introduce everybody, I got to turn up like the 12 mics that I'm running today. So, again, I hope you've all had an amazing Christmas, Hanukkah, and, of course, I hope you got some exciting plans in store for New Year's. But now I got to introduce you to the huge cast we have on. It's our final show of the year, so we had to go big or go home, as they say. So, at the big table, as always, my good friend Anibal. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. It's been a great 2019. Can't wait to start making errors to write 2020. I want to write 2019. I'm sorry. Moving on.
All right. And in the center seat, joining us, and she hadn't been here in a little while, so we're excited to have her back. Ladies and gentlemen, Janet Wynn, everybody.
Hey.
How you doing?
It's my favorite time of year because it's that time of year that you never know what day of the week it is. So at least now I know today is Monday, but
Really?
it's always like, is it Thursday? Is it Sunday? So today's Monday.
It feels like a
Happy
Sunday.
yard sign.
Look at that. Look, I got a little picture-in-picture thing going on.
Boom.
Yeah.
Every show, new stuff, every show. I work hard for this show, I'm telling you. All right, and that good-looking gentleman over on the far right, sitting in for Mr. Jake Hoffman, who we miss his sexy self very much around here. But he'll be back, don't worry.
Deep V shirts and everything.
That's Chris Carter, everybody.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Let me go and flip your appropriately to the right-hand side. There we go. And Chris Carter, you can find him at Livecast USA. And I'll throw his, let's see, a screen name up one more time so you can follow him on the Twitter sphere. And bonus, okay? This is a bonus setup for today's show. We got the couch. I don't even know what to call it. I'm just going to call it the couch. All right? And those two good-looking people right there. That on the left is Michelle Sassooni, who hasn't been here in a while. How you doing, Michelle?
Good. Nice to be back.
Well,
and
thanks.
we missed Jake, too.
And then you've seen this guy quite a bit recently. Sitting next to Michelle is Chris Licata.
Hi everybody, how's everyone doing today?
And it always reminds me because it's like Licata.
Licata.
Bachata.
Yeah. Well, and for those of you on the couch, because we're trying out some new technology, make sure you speak up so everybody can hear you. But again, not only... Yes. Well, not even enunciate. I just need you to be loud. That's all.
Oh, okay.
And like I was saying, not only do we have a big cast today, but we also got a big topic list. So let's bust out the topic list here. Actually, I got to move out of the way to get this topic list up. Oh, there it is. Oh, my goodness. All right. So let's start off with the big topic from not only the weekend, but the past couple weeks, which have been the religious attacks in New York City, now in Texas over the weekend. Kind of crazy, but the end of the year, the holidays, does that to a lot of people. It's that time of year where, things get a little out of control. And unfortunately, we have now had some stabbings in New York City. We had the shooting in Texas, New York. What do you guys think? Do you think it's the holidays? Do you think it's something bigger than that?
I think it's something a lot bigger than that. From being in New York and around the Jewish community a lot through the years, there are a lot of Jewish people in New York City. The community is pretty tight-knit. But I think when you look at the people that have done some of these attacks with the machetes or whatever, I think it'd take it back all the way to Louis Farrakhan. I mean, when you've been saying all these things against Jews for so long, and all the people that seem to be attacking the Jews are black, who are you gonna blame, right? You know what I mean? Who is the leader of the Muslim Black American movement? It's Louis Farrakhan, and I don't blame him specifically for that, but definitely these people are not mentally stable. And if you look at them, they look like they're straight homeless people. And the Jews have been scapegoated for millennia about problems they've caused the world and this and that. Nobody can ever really actually put their finger on it. But I can say it's very, very disturbing. I mean, I think there's 8 days in Hanukkah, and there's been 8 or 9 attacks, one every single day.
Well, but certainly not on the scale of the stabbings, but there was even a woman today in New York City who assaulted some Jews over the weekend, and then was released, and then proceeded to attack and assault some more Jews. And so, it makes you wonder if this is really the de Blasio administration coming to a head and his lack of inaction against these sort of things.
I mean, you had de Blasio supporting the BDS, I think it's the BDS movement years ago, and then he had to walk it back. The leadership in New York has not done enough to fight anti-Semitism, has not done enough to fight what's going on in those communities, and that's what's happening. And to hear the mayor go and attack Trump and others because of what's happening in his city is like you're acting like a child trying to blame someone else for what's happening in your city with your citizens. So I'm pretty upset about what happened. I think it's something that continues to grow and fester. And these are very liberal cities. This is not in the middle of the heartland. This is an area that is very democratic, very, very. It's supposed to be very liberal, but you're starting to see the cracks in that facade of their willingness to be pluralism.
It is really frustrating how often you hear people talk about the tone of Trump, how we know that he's someone who tends to be kind of aggressive. He stands up for himself, especially if he's attacked. He definitely fights back. And I think it's really funny when people say the tone is the reason for these killings. Like, as if you have a negative tone, it turns people into murderers. Like, to connect those dots there, I think is such a far-fetched attempt to do. Like, if you're in a bad mood, when I'm in a bad mood, I don't want to go kill people. That doesn't correlate there in my mind.
Yeah, and I would say, with Trump, with blaming him, there are people who can make arguments for him being, connected to some groups on the alt-right, but he is a very pro-Israel, probably the most pro-Israel president that I can remember us ever having. And so it kind of blows my mind that he would be blamed. But in my opinion, I think if we look on a national level, as Anibal brought up with the BDS movement, when you see Rashida Tlaib and several other people support for it, like AOC, all of that squad seems to just openly back it. And if you say that the BDS movement, which is boycott, divest, and sanction from all products that are Israeli, so that's your HP, or I don't know if it's HP computers, but Intel, Intel processors, and it's like, how can, that in and of itself, you're trying to cripple a country's economy, with that movement. So, the fact that they're just so openly supporting it, I think, is troubling. And then I think that gives way to people feeling comfortable merging anti-Israeli arguments with anti-Semitic arguments. And that's a real issue, because when they kind of merge all together, which is clearly happening, it's a problem.
All I got is that it's evil exists, and if the conversation's going to be, here you have the holiday season. I don't think I think cowards use the holiday season and use people who are trying to pursue their religious beliefs to take advantage of that. And, obviously in a city like New York, knives are used instead of guns. And, I look at Texas and I go, you have the right to carry a weapon, you have the right to carry a firearm, and in Texas that saved lives instead of hurting it. And in New York City, you have people running around stabbing people. So I don't think I think both of these things happening the same weekend are extremely tragic. However, it gives the lie that, if we just had better laws, less people would get hurt. No, evil will find a way to hurt other people.
Okay, but so, no pun intended, but devil's advocate here. Are they related? Are they not? Are these retaliations against strongly religious organizations somehow connected? Or do you think they're disconnected, and obviously in very different scenarios? I mean, we had one. What happened in New York was obviously related to gunfire, and then with Texas it was gunfire, New York was stabbings. But do you guys believe in any way that these are somehow related and connected in any way to the political tension that we have right now?
At the end of the day, these are two of the most holiest times of the year for Christianity and for Judaism. It's a very public display, Hanukkah. I know it's not one of the major ones when it comes to the Jewish faith, but it's very much on display. I mean, a lot of Americans know it because it correlates to the same time frame around Christmas. To say that there's some form of tie, I don't think that it's way too premature. We're not FBI agents. We don't have that kind of research and information yet, and it's still a developing case. But I would say it gets more attention because of the season that we're in at the moment, and because they were so close in time, and there was two very religious organizations that were hit. So I don't want to say that there's a correlation, but I will say it's affecting more people because of the holiday season and because of the timing on both of them.
Now, let's go to the obvious kind of debate or conversation happening about what happened in Texas. We saw within 8 seconds, we saw the shooter in the church in Texas be taken out by what is a veteran, I believe, who happened to be there in that capacity, in a security type of capacity, take out the shooter after he had already shot one individual at pretty close range, followed by, I think, 7 other people who were carrying in that church. What do you think that does to the conversation about gun control?
Well, I think it's pretty significant. I mean, you look at the video and it is extremely disturbing. A place of worship, Sunday morning, and you look at the audience in church, and then you look at this guy, and he looks like he should be hanging out with the guys from Columbine. It's kind of like this dark-suited hood. He looks like the Grim Reaper.
Yeah.
And then when you hear the sound of the gun, and wow, how impressive was this guy? I was just looking at a headline of him right now. The Texas church security member who shot the gunman, saying he had his eyes on him the whole time. That was a Doc Holliday style hit. I'm your Huckleberry. Boom. He wasn't close to him. He nailed him. Tapped him right in the head.
Feet. It was a 55-foot shot.
And if you watch the video, you can see him watching him the whole time. Like, it was just obvious who was going to be first, to have a gun pulled. Like, he had his hand on his hip and was ready to go almost by the time the guy got his gun out. It was incredible, security work, and you can tell that he has had extensive training.
And this isn't the first time that a church has been targeted. It's been happening for quite some time. In my church alone, we do have security, and we pay for officers. And a lot of the other bigger churches do. And a lot of small churches actually have security teams that are able to react if something is occurring. There were horrific attacks during the 90s where parishioners were getting stabbed with people running down the pews with a knife. And ever since that occurred, a lot more churches have been taking the defensive. I did remember seeing an article of a Jewish festival happening where they were showing the security that they had with the vests and with the guns, so that people knew that there was security. So it is hypening up the situation, and it's sad that we have to have it. But this also shows one additional thing, that these are no longer soft targets. Churches are no longer soft targets, and that's something that we have to promote, that there should not be any soft targets. And what creates a soft target? And that is a gun-free zone. And again, when you label your facility that, then the criminals and people that are crazy and that want to kill people are going to go after those gun-free zones because no one's going to fight back.
So it just came out that this shooter was a convicted felon, and you're not allowed to have a gun in Texas if you're a convicted felon. So if all the people who are law-abiding citizens in Texas lost their guns, then they would have sat there and been able to do nothing except maybe try to run, maybe try to duck until that shooter ran out of bullets.
There would have been a massacre.
But because there were a bunch of cops and people who carried with guns on their hips, they were able to take them out after only 2, which is really sad. It shouldn't have been 2. And you never want someone to lose their life. But man, it was incredible to see him hit that guy right in the head at the first shot in 2 seconds. I had to watch it more than once because I felt like that could not actually be what I just saw. It was so incredible with all those people around and that no one got in the way. But he was confident. He knew what he was doing.
Yeah, I think the fact that when I hear you say that he's a convicted felon, that
just came out. I haven't fact checked it,
okay.
But however, I would imagine it's true from the source that I saw posted.
Yeah, so when I hear that, I think then that, and we've had a large discussion about the Second Amendment and gun control on the show before. So, but I'm just trying to say that I do think that it gives credence to talking about trying to see, are there better ways to maybe perhaps prevent felons from getting their hands on guns, and potentially have ways of looking at it. I'm not saying, one way or another, but I do think that there are too many felons that have been able to obtain weaponry, and that is a real issue. And it's not just black market sales, because that doesn't tend to be the biggest way that people get their hands on guns. A lot of times it's person to person sales, and that other person may not be checking into it, and checking the registration like they're supposed to.
It varies state by state, but like for instance, in the state of New York, if you get charged with unlawful possession of a firearm, the police department regulates all the guns in New York City, right? So if they get a call, like a domestic dispute, and you go and they come to your house, they pretty much know already whether there's a weapon there legally. They are already going to assume that there's danger, but they will definitely know if you have a gun. Now, Texas, completely different than New York, exactly. Right? I mean, it's almost like Virginia and what we were talking about. But, you got to really take your hat off to that guy who didn't hesitate. He probably saved, 2, 3, 5 people's lives. I mean, what were you guys telling me? 7 people were packing in
You could see as you
watch.
watch the video, they slowly closed in. Now, no one was as confident or as fast as that guy, but you would see then like one person. At first, everybody ducked, and that guy killed him. And then it was like all the other people who carried counted to like 5, and then they slowly moved in. I also was thinking how incredible that this place had a camera in the corner, because we've had all these church shootings and things have happened. But
they were streaming the service.
Which
just like we're doing.
Which a lot of churches do.
Streaming. Yeah,
oh my
they
God,
do
I just
that.
got
my
goosebumps.
church has done that.
So there you go.
Yeah.
And
So that's why it's on
I
video.
think that's why it was so much more effective scaring other people. I mean, I remember watching it for the first time. I almost dropped my phone because of how emotional it was, because I knew exactly what part of the service was happening. It was a transition. They were just taking offering. We see it every Sunday. We do it 4 or 5 times every Sunday at our church. Not same service, but different services. And it was numbing to see. I can tell what pew I would be sitting in, because I know where I like to sit in the church. I know where my family would sit, and that's where. And we stream ourselves, so it's like that is bone chilling to see the effect of what could happen at someone's church. And again, we praise God that there are people there that were trained, that they have the right to carry their arms. They're able to practice participating in the Second Amendment.
I want to add something real fast, is because we keep saying that the guy was trained and that he had all this training and he was able to, and hats off to him 110%. That training was something he sought out, is not something that the government didn't train him. And I know that you're not suggesting that.
No, but the church had a security team.
He works at a shooting center.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
he owns it.
He owns the shooting center and everything. Yes, but it's just there's a lot of CCWs who carry and who train at their own cost. And that's an important factor in all of this, is like, I train a lot, because I see a situation like that, and as a veteran and everything, it's like I don't ever want to have to pull the trigger or anything, but if I'm ever in the situation, which I hope I'm not, I want to be able to act that fast and operate that smoothly, and that only comes with the training.
But you are a responsible gun owner.
Of course.
And so, again, in my household, when we make that decision to purchase a gun for the safety of the house, we will be training on that gun, so then we feel comfortable and that we know what we're doing. But that's what normal, responsible, legally owning gun owners do on a constant basis. They train for the weapon that they have, and they do that on purpose. We're not talking about that here. This situation was someone that should never have had the ability to get a gun. And that's something that we're constantly fighting for, is that the laws that people continue to try to pass are doing nothing but deterring legally people that are doing the right thing. And those are not the people that you're trying to take the guns away. It's people that are getting them illegally that we need to be figuring out a way to get that.
Well, one last thing on that real quick. The closest country you can look to that has a violence epidemic is Mexico. Now, Mexico, guns are illegal for everybody. That's not for regular citizens to have. So who has them? The cartel has all of them. So when they roll into your village with their AK-47 and they say, I own your house now because I'm going to make a drug tunnel under it. There's no like citizen militia to team up, you know. Regular people can't own guns in Mexico, so the federales have them and the cartels have them, and that's pretty much it. That's why Mexico is like totally screwed right now with the amount of violence they've had, because these people can't not take their towns back. I know we always talk about civilian uprising against the government, and you know, God forbid Trump gets impeached, what's going to happen? But, you know.
Nothing.
Right. I mean, it's one of those things where you can look easily to Mexico as an example of what happens when you take weapons out of the hands of ordinary citizens.
You take the power out of the citizenship, which means that you have the government running amok, and then what's next under the government is the cartels, which sometimes in some parts of Mexico are more powerful than the government itself.
Yeah.
And then you have Mormons in the middle of nowhere taking out nesting shots. And it's a crazy world in Mexico that they allowed themselves to be taken over by this.
Well, also, you know, the police chief was just arrested in Mexico for being part of that slaughter of that Mormon family. And what most people don't realize, you know, I've spent some time in Mexico, the federales are the cartels. Everybody's hands are dirty. Everybody's family's had a part of it. Everybody's been affected by it. Everybody knows somebody who's been killed. They've been paid to shut up, whatever it is. You know, it's really terrible what those people are going through. And I don't disagree at all with having a nationalist agenda about taking care of America, because if we're going to worry about tax dollars going all the way to Afghanistan, they need to go to Latin America, Central America, South America, all those different continents, because they're closer to our backyard. You know, those people are going to be coming here because they're fleeing violence for real, right?
All right. Well, to, you know, from third world problems to, no, they're not third world, but to first world problems, Trump impeachment.
Good
Let's
job.
bring up our menu so for those of you watching at home can keep up on today's topic. Of course, nothing's happened because of the holidays, you know, but nonetheless, Nancy Pelosi is still sitting on the impeachment documents. Just a quick roundabout. Do you think, you know, the speculation now is that she's holding on to these documents because she's waiting for to see what happens, you know, what's going to shake out in these elections. Do you guys think that she's going to sit on these documents for a whole year? You know, do you think that's a possibility?
I can't imagine, but it looking like completely taking away any regard for it actually being an honest process if she sits on it, because they're already manipulating the system, and most people are already seeing it. And we were talking today about how Trump's what was the thing I said about how Trump and Obama are like the most admired leaders, and they're like tied for it right now.
Right? I guess
so everyone
something came out.
Everyone can already see that it's a joke. The camera.
We're getting a little camera adjustment there.
We're moving.
Baby, this is raw production. JT always gets it right.
Everyone could already see that it's a joke, but when she sits on it, she's just like tattling on herself that it's absolutely a joke, that they don't actually have the ability to impeach him for something he's actually done. So because she's completely lost that argument, now she has to manipulate it.
I love what's happening right now because honestly, I think we all can agree she's probably one of the best tacticianers when it comes to the House that has been a part.
What's a tacticianer?
Like, she knows how to move and how to manipulate and everything else. So by her holding back the articles of impeachment, it indicates, one, okay, because she says we're not going to get a fair trial if it goes to the Senate, and we, in the back of our minds, the House has been wanting to impeach Trump since day one, and that's your mindset. So with her holding back the articles of impeachment, saying that, well, we can't do it until we get a fair trial, we all know it's BS, but she's at least creating a narrative that she can fight and run on.
I'm going to take a soundbite here from my favorite person in the world, Greta Thunberg. Nancy Pelosi, how dare you? How dare you put the American people through this? Because basically what we're saying here is correct. She's like a little kid throwing a temper tantrum, and this senile old bat has hijacked the U.S. government. That's what people need to be talking about. Do you have the capacity to actually think about what's going on around you? And why are you doing this to us? This is not about you and your party. It's country over party, dumb old bat.
She doesn't care. She does not care.
From listening to, I listened to Mitch McConnell speak on the Senate floor, and wasn't the most exciting video as you can imagine, but I listened to it anyway. And he was saying that he and Chuck Schumer couldn't really come to terms in that what they had previously agreed upon during the Clinton impeachment. Chuck Schumer was now going back, saying, "Oh, well, this is a different situation, and it's the argument over the witnesses and getting in particular witnesses, like I heard Mick Mulvaney's name and several others. That is why she's sitting on the articles, and I think also there's a part of it that the Democrats want to get back at Mitch McConnell for not hearing the Supreme Court hearings for oh my gosh, I was blanking.
Kavanaugh.
No, prior to Kavanaugh.
Gorsuch.
Well, no, when Scalia passed away, Obama nominated somebody, and McConnell was like, "We're not hearing it."
This is what happens when Mitch McConnell refuses to hear it. His name is slowly forgotten into the annals of history.
Yeah.
That's a great quote.
Anyway, so yeah.
Go ahead. Next. How do you want to walk with that one?
I'm really pissed we're even having this discussion because, there is a thing called due process. Everybody knows that the so-called hearings were rigged, and it's time for them to hand it off. And frankly, I'd like a full trial. I want witnesses called. I want to know why Democratic members of the U.S. government have been laundering money through third world governments to enrich themselves and their families.
It's never going to happen. There's not going to be a full trial. It will be at the most 2 weeks, and then they're going to call for the vote, and that's all that's going to happen. And the reason why is because Republicans always look like the bad guy in these situations. We let the Democrats run amok for 3 years, and they look horrible. We've raised almost $200 million on the impeachment thing, and it's now time to move on because we're getting into the election cycle. And I agree, the longer that she keeps it on, she makes herself and her party look weaker and weaker, and she's going to stick the senators that are all running for president into the House, into the Senate chambers for the next 2 to 3 weeks. But she's going to hold on as long as possible, and she doesn't care, and there will be no large trial. I agree with you with everything you said, but there will be no large trial.
I just want to give a shout out to all the people of San Francisco. If anybody's watching, congratulations on electing this idiot to be your representative again. Hi, San Francisco. Don't worry about me.
I was not expecting that one. All right, hang on. So, all right, let's go. We'd already talked about that one in previous shows, and again, not a lot of movement there, so we'll bring back up the list of topics for today. Dem Primary, again, not a lot of movement other than after that last debate, Buttigieg went hard on Warren, and I think he might have gotten up some pretty good hits in. Her numbers, got shook up a little bit. And is it Andrew Yang that I think is gaining some ground?
Yeah. He's
Yang
climbing his way up there. Mm-hmm. It's really impressive.
After the whipped cream incident, he's redeemed himself.
Oh my gosh, the whipped cream incident. It was horrible. And again, I love, you can see the campaign manager in the background like, this is going to make it on YouTube.
Like, stop.
This is going to make it on YouTube.
Abort.
At Yang's numbers, Yang had a good night. And I think people think that, like, I'm a huge Tulsi and Yang fan and everything. It's like, no, I just want an opposition that actually makes coherent thoughts. And they're the only two that make coherent thoughts. I can disagree with those thoughts, but everyone else on that stage is not making coherent sense.
And in the chance that someone does beat Trump from the Democratic Party, you want somebody that you don't feel is going to completely bankrupt the country. And you're just like, with almost every other candidate, you just really, especially Elizabeth Warren, you just really feel like, her and also Bernie, that they're just
going to turn a socialist.
Yeah,
that's my fear.
They're going to turn us into a socialist country, and it I don't know where it's really worked out without, a flowing free market.
I don't know about you guys, but when I look at their lineup and, I've been covering this a long time, I'm really not worried about any of them. I just don't think any one of them is even close to beating Trump. He's broken every single fundraising record. But besides that, when you're out there on the street and you're talking to the regular Americans every day, the people are turning for Trump. They love Trump. We were just talking about this today, how I was talking with some black guys. Yes, I still call them black guys. They were talking about how Obama was just the first black president, and that was all he was. And he never really did anything for black people. Well, I think people are waking up, and the poll numbers are rising. You're going to see Latinos turn out. You're going to see black people turn out. And, of course, you're going to see conservative Republicans turn out.
The conversation has been ticking. I would say that I agree. Even with me sitting in a room with a bunch of West Coast individuals that are so upset that they either move to the West Coast for a job, or they're upset that they have to have paper straw. Like this, once you in Florida and in the South, and even in very conservative communities, you get comfortable in that community. You don't see, you're in a bubble. And the moment you're taken out of that, you move to California, you move to upstate New York, and you realize, oh my gosh, these people are crazy.
Oh, by the West Coast, I thought you meant Pinellas.
Hey.
You realize how crazy these rules and regulations, and the microaggressions, and like these people are trying to rip their hair out, and they're like, I might vote for Trump. These people are making me want to become an NRA member.
Well, my opinion in general, California is a failed state.
Okay, so little story, because it considered I just came back from California. So we just crossed. It wasn't too bad. So this is what I'm going to say. So we just crossed the state border from Arizona into California. We go into literally the first gas station bathroom, and we see the sign that was an all gender bathroom. And the other restrooms weren't open. So you watch every person in line look at it, get confused, and then be like, oh, and stop and take a picture of it. And I asked,
it's now a tourist attraction.
Yeah, and I asked the girl at the counter, I said, when did you start doing that? And she said, well, when the law went into effect in October of last year. And I was like, quite frankly, use whatever bathroom you want. I don't care. I just don't think you need to have a law for it. And she goes, you right? Oh, she was like, we're at risk of getting sued if we don't have it. So hearing her say that and talking to some other people at bars in California, they're a lot more, in general, reasonable than you would think. There are so many of them, they love the state of California in general, the sunshine, but they don't like all the regulations.
You got Gavin Newsom to think about that.
California's losing 700 people a day. It's absolutely insane how many people are leaving.
900, so.
Yeah, but that's because of other situations. Yeah.
But I love that point, Michelle, because it just shows you that it's not the people. The people are voting for the idiots that are making these laws, but it's the idiots that are making the laws. And maybe the pendulum will get all the way to the other side and then tip and start coming back, where they'll maybe start saying, we need to put some conservatives back in there because I want a bathroom that says woman.
Well, politicians do that every single time, though. Liberals and conservatives, they go way too far to the point where people are like, okay, we gave you too much. It's time for something else. I think that we're going to see that in California. I think we're going to see that in Virginia. I think we're going to see that in a lot of places that people don't think are going to be competitive and are going to be very competitive again this time around. I'm not surprised. If I agree with you. I'd have no fear that Trump is not going to win. I have concerns that we might not take the House, but now every day I'm watching the craziness happening on the left. I'm like, we probably will retake the House. We're definitely keeping the Senate. There's almost no way about that, and he might win the popular vote, which then shuts everyone up for 4 years.
Going back to the gender neutral bathroom thing, I think you probably have to ask yourself, would you let your child go into a gender-neutral bathroom? When does it become appropriate then for your child to go to the bathroom alone?
It was a single-use stall.
But there was only
that's
one.
different.
There was only one stall, but yet they still had to have the sign.
That's so weird.
And I was like, when did unisex bathrooms become not appropriate? That's crazy to me. We have unisex bathrooms that have a sign of a man and a woman, but that sign had to get taken off, and they had to replace it with the man, woman, and then other the
62 gendered.
No,
sign.
it was a 3-gendered sign, which then I was like,
that's offensive. That's offensive.
It was insane to me, and it was just. And I talked to a lot of Californians. I was there for I think 6 days. And
you were in the bathroom for 6 days?
It was a rough trip to California. No, I was.
The tamales. Oh my gosh.
No,
I don't even know what tamale is.
But there's hope. There is hope that a lot more Californians, they might not be huge Trump supporters, but they're at least reasonable, and that gives you hope that if they keep pushing, like Aníbal said, too far to the radical left, then the pendulum will come back.
Well, if you're living in California, how do you not look at not only things like this, you look at the homeless situation, you look at the crime situation, and not realize that your state forget about the rest of the country.
State
Your state
sucks.
is severely on the decline. Like, it is crashing and burning. I mean, under almost solely Democratic leadership.
I mean, the opposite take is I've recently paid much more attention to Florida politics because we're doing so fantastic, and national politics honestly just depresses me because I just go like, it's everyone's yelling at everyone, whereas here in Florida we're getting a lot of things done.
You sound like Jake. That's what he says all the
I
time.
like state politics. I like state
Oh,
politics.
we
a
miss
lot
Jake.
more.
You guys miss Jake.
I can't help but think about him.
All right,
You're
let's
gonna marry him.
Oh my gosh, trust me, you're gonna get enough of
And
him.
we're all going to
Oh,
the
we're always
wedding.
the wedding.
That's
Yeah.
right.
No,
All right.
seriously.
Well, we briefly touched on the Second Amendment, and there's some craziness going on in Virginia. Not that I want to dwell too long on this particular topic, because I think at this point Virginia is starting to be a lost cause, almost like New York and California. But some severe gun laws going into place, and you're also getting a pushback from a lot of counties. Fortunately, we have an expert on Virginia with us, if I can call him that. But Chris, you were saying,
Of the group.
Okay, well,
of the
just-
group. I mean, what the hell's going on in Virginia?
A little background on me. I'm from the suburbs of Washington, D.C. I went to Shenandoah University, which is about an hour and a half west. It's pretty much the last western town outside of Washington before you really get into West Virginia and like really small towns. There's a lot of guns out there and things like that, but I just don't understand why the state governor and other people in the government cannot just throw down the gauntlet of what it's in the Constitution and what it says about the Second Amendment. Federal law supersedes state law. It's clear, in every aspect. And frankly, where's the Supreme Court on this? I mean, where are they, and why is it taking them so long to act on this? Because all the counties are going to do is, well, we're a Second Amendment sanctuary county. We're a sanctuary county for this, we're a sanctuary county for that, okay? The Constitution doesn't say it's illegal to smoke cigarettes, but it does say it's legal to own weapons.
Don't get me wrong, though.
you know-
I'm very excited about states and even counties, to an extent. And we're going to have a similar fight here in Florida, but really pushing back on the state government and taking back some of their own rights. And so, there's a fine balance there. I mean, again, obviously, Virginia is way across the line, in terms of implementing these types of policies that are obviously affecting, our Second Amendment rights. But for the counties to push back on their state government, I think is also pretty brilliant on their part. And again, there's a lot of home rule talk, happening in Tallahassee between the counties and the state government, and that's going to be a hot topic here in Florida too.
I don't like the idea of always having to run to the federal government for these things. I think this is what Virginia citizens get for electing the politicians that they elected, and I feel that that's the backlash that you're going to have to deal with. And people are not waking up in Virginia. For the longest time, Virginia was a solid red state. It has definitely gone from purple to dark to blue, very much so because of the anti-Trump rhetoric. But what's happening now is all those rural and other counties are starting to step out. You were showing us pictures earlier of county town halls that are filled to the brink of individuals, and you can tell they're not there to support the gun laws. They're there to tear it down. I think what happens is, and we say this all the time, elections have consequences, and Virginia is feeling that consequence now. And what's going to happen is that I truly feel, I don't want to say a civil war in Virginia, but the backlash will be so much that you push all of those people that voted for those things out of the Virginia government.
Well, it goes back to Governor Ralph Northam and frankly to Ken Cuccinelli, who lost the election to him. Mm-hmm. Things would be considerably different right now if Cuccinelli had embraced President Trump, brought in the base, he would have won Virginia. But instead, the stupid guy lost because he wouldn't go to his powerful next door neighbor, the president of the United States, and just, kind of say, hey, I'm with you. Can we get some support here? Can we get some money? And instead, he lost to Ralph Northam. And then, you've seen what's happened with this guy with the blackface pictures and all that stuff. I mean, if that was a Republican, he'd be gone.
Well, I mean, look, Chris, we saw it happen with Terry McAuliffe. I mean, every time the Democrats have gotten in charge of the state government in Virginia, they've pushed as hard and as fast as they can. And this is a product of that. And I don't understand when Virginians are going to realize that, again, they need to get behind all of their Republican candidates, even if they don't agree with them 100% of the time.
DC uses Virginia as a testing bed for all of these national things that they want to roll out nationally. And you can definitely see it because a lot of people that work in DC live in Virginia because it's so much more cheaper. And that's the syndrome that you have, a huge federal government that's focused on building. The federal government, at the end of the day, would love to do something like this. There are a lot of people that would love nationalizing a lot of what's happening in Virginia, but you have to push back. As citizens of Virginia, you have to push back and show that that's not what the country, not what you want for your cities, and not what the country wants.
Yeah, Northern Virginia controls Virginia. It's clear.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think what you're saying about them using it as a testing ground for national politics is, really like is so accurate because Virginia, and it's shocking me because, it's like Virginia is the South.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people forget it, but when you go to Virginia, they still fly the rebel flag there. And it is, it is a very proudly Southern state. So, to try to take away their guns, that is a state that I never would have really expected them to try. And honestly, I think Ralph Northam is like, man, I already had the blackface scandal. How much worse can this get for me?
If you can beat that, you can beat anything.
Honestly, yeah.
Yeah, she's right about that.
How else?
I think a lot of what everyone's saying goes to Democrat strategy more generally, whether it's in Virginia state government or it's in the federal government or any other state. It's generally they seize power, they push as hard to the left as they can, right? I mean, this is what happened with Obamacare. They pushed Obamacare on the American people, knowing it was going to sink them in the 2010 election, and they're okay with that so long as they get the policy they want, regardless if people want it or not. They do it kicking and screaming, and they write into law because they know a lot of Republicans don't have the bones to reverse course.
I agree with that. And in Virginia, 70 counties have now said that they will be they're considering themselves Second Amendment sanctuary counties. You have a huge pushback with entire police departments saying that they will deputize anyone that has, which is awesome. They're trying to figure out what's going to happen. I agree with you. I don't know why the courts haven't gone into this, but what's going to happen?
Why are we having this discussion?
But that's the thing, though. What's going to occur is all of these ways of tricking the electorate, or not tricking the electorate, supersede that law until it gets to the courts. It takes months to get to the courts, and you're going to have a fight now within Virginia. The governors are going to take out sheriffs because they don't agree with what's happening, and then you're going to have an uprising with people.
The really concerning thing, I think, what's brought this to the national forefront is the comment of the governor to use the National Guard.
Oh my gosh,
sheriffs.
yes.
Now, as far as the argument against home rule, I'm not a home rule fan whatsoever. I've been very vocal about that. So it's, that complicates a lot of this. But to use the National Guard against your elected sheriffs because they're deputizing citizens who own firearms. This way they can get around the law.
He won't do it. I honestly believe he won't do it.
But there's a lot of talk.
And if he does, we're all going to... I mean, you'll see people
pour
pour into Virginia if they try to pull that card.
If things get really heated, a federal judge stops in and stays everything and says, all right, everyone calm the heck down, and a federal judge will end up deciding this, which is actually not what I want. You were saying, where's the Supreme Court on this? Look, this is a matter of state law.
I agree.
This is a matter of Virginia state law. This is a matter of home rule versus Dillon's rule.
But federal law supersedes state law in every aspect.
Federal constitutional protections do apply here. I think
they just don't apply. They supersede.
But
it's like First Amendment free speech doesn't stop in Minnesota because all of a sudden they don't like it.
You want the states to figure this out. You want the states to be able, again, the goal of the states was to test different ways of living, different systems to be able to figure out what would be best for the national. If this is the way Virginia has to go, then this is the way Virginia has to go, and we need to figure out how Virginia is going to figure. Let's
not also forget who is in Virginia, right down the street off I-66 is the NRA. They're going to have a big say-so in this.
I'm telling you, if they do the National Guard, the South will pour into Virginia to stop that from happening.
And I think the National Guard, quite frankly, I could easily see them taking, stepping out of their uniforms and saying, we're not doing this.
Yeah, you'll have thousands of Virginia National Guard troops going AWOL.
Exactly.
And be like, look, and then that also brings up a posse comitatus issue, which is another legal thing that says you can't use the army to enforce law.
Correct.
This sounds like a made-for-TV movie. Like the way you guys are all describing this.
Yeah,
You know what I
War in
mean?
Virginia,
That's-
except it's not the
Seriously.
Civil War.
That's-
Oh yeah, it is. It's
that's-
the Civil War
it's-
I mean,
too.
that's how Democrats view themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, they're completely bought and paid for by Hollywood. So they think like Hollywood scriptwriters. You know, like that's
Yeah.
how they view politics. And it's like it's not how any of this works.
All right. Well, again, that's going to be a developing story, and I think it's going to set a precedent. You know, depending on how that goes, I think it's going to be a litmus test, especially for liberal states, on whether or not they're going to be able to pull off similar policies. I mean, you know, certainly if Democrats had their way here in Florida, you know, they would enact very similar changes. You know, you've got Representative Smith and a few others throughout the state who are trying to push for these types of policies. You know, but it's one of these things that I think certainly as terrible as incidents like that were, you know, you hate to see things like what happened in Texas happen, but it's a perfect example, and there's examples constantly about why we have the Second Amendment, and certainly when you look at what's happening in Virginia, for the state government to say that they're going to leverage their military towards enforcing anti-Second Amendment policy, I think is not going to go well for Democrats or the governor in that state. So
Let it happen. You'll see. We'll win even bigger. Could you,
Right?
Virginia going red again? That's the implications. They don't think of, the Democrats are not thinking this long term, that the detriment that will occur is them losing Virginia and them losing the 2020 elections. And I'm really excited to see how this plays out, because this is definitely a push of citizens, states fighting with each other, and I really want to see the outcome of that, because it helps us as a nation to develop our laws and develop our citizenship.
Yeah. All right. So certainly an issue that we'd actually talked about indirectly on the show in a previous episode, because it was actually a bill that may still see the light of day in Tallahassee, but the federal government, I think, beat them to it, is raising the smoking age to 21. And this kind of came out of nowhere and got passed by Congress pretty quickly. You know, the raising the smoking age to 21. How do you guys feel about that? I mean, I have mixed feelings on it, again, because especially the military service argument, et cetera, but, you know, again, when you look at the cost of healthcare, when you look at, you know, the addictive nature of tobacco, I'm not even talking about the vaping stuff. I mean, you know, has the government gone too far? Do you think this is going to be able to stay held up? I mean, do you think, or, you know, was this a bad move?
I think it's a bad move. I mean, I personally believe that both the smoking age and the drinking age should be 19, because you're out of high school when you're 19, and if you're 18, you're still in high school, so you could, you know, potentially give even younger kids access. But at 19, you're out of high school. You're able to serve in the military. You are essentially on your way to adulthood, and you really are an adult for all intents and purposes. And I just believe that you can't ask for military service and not allow someone to to smoke or drink. So I protect the high school kids, but I think 19 is a happy medium between 18 and 21.
I go back and forth about this because, tobacco does kill and it's very addicting, but at the same time, a lot of these kids, just like you said, they're, asked to lay down their lives at 18 for the military, but you can't buy a pack of cigarettes, so I get that. It's interesting to see how we're looking at young adults in America now. I think a lot of these kids that are out there, they don't really know what's going on when they're 18. I know some pretty stupid 19-year-olds.
I know pretty stupid
they should
25-year-olds.
have a car.
Yeah, but you know what I love the most, because I'm not a smoker. I never have been. I actually came from a family of smokers who all progressively quit over the years, but still nonetheless had lasting effects on the health of my various relatives. My grandfather, my aunt, both suffering from cancer. But the trend is already on the downturn. The trend towards smoking has been on the downslope for many years now. And then what's comical is that liberals have placed all types of taxes and have used the tobacco industry for revenue for years. And just like we're seeing with gas and fuel, we're also seeing with tobacco that those revenues are falling drastically because people aren't smoking as much as they used to.
At the end of the day, I think what pushed for this to occur is the people that are voting. People that are voting for these individuals, which are soccer moms, individuals that are older, and at the end of the day, a high schooler cannot vote unless they're 18, so that demographic doesn't really matter. I also split about this. I understand the purpose of them pushing it to 21. We have drinking's already up at 21. I don't have an issue with them smoking at 21. In regards to you can serve your country, yes, and you're trained to shoot a gun, and all that's being done, and you're choosing to go into the military. We don't have a system where people are forced to anymore. We have career military individuals.
As the veteran in the room, I do think I should just point out that on base, you're not supposed to drink under 21, and yet we can drink plenty on base under the age of 21. It's the military culture as far as like, oh, well, you're in the military. Like, the military will be just fine.
That's why I'm saying it's not an argument.
My big thing is there has to be a single standard, and I don't think that anyone's liberties should be curtailed based on age past the age of majority, right? So I think where we're heading with all of this is moving the age of majority to 21, right? And that would require a constitutional amendment, but I think that's where we're going is now. It's also very interesting that
then that would change the voting age to 21,
right, which is interesting because Democrats want to move the voting age to 16.
Yeah.
Right? So this is the argument that is occurring is, I personally don't think that you can infringe on anyone's liberties of what they choose to do to their own body, after they've reached age of majority. So if we're going to say you can't buy a gun until 21, you can't drink alcohol till 21, you can't smoke till 21, then you shouldn't vote either. It's like,
but then you shouldn't be tried. You shouldn't be tried as an adult either.
You shouldn't be tried as an adult.
Like, apparently, you don't know what you're doing. Until you're 21.
And then. Should you serve in the military?
No.
Until you're 21.
I joined at 17, and I think it was a good experience for me. I would recommend it. However, I would have joined at 21 as well. So I think we can incorporate trade schools. We can incorporate more grades into the you don't have to go to college. I think there should be that gets into an educational program and all this other stuff. But I think overall,
I think without the military, maybe you say you would have joined, but there's a lot of people that from that 18 to 21-year-old age, they're experimenting and trying different things and different career paths, and the military gives them the opportunity to do something for, typically it's like 4 to 6 years, that you can enlist for do something productive with that time, work towards what the military gives in a college degree or potentially a future with the military. And we're in it. Many people who end up joining are, lower to middle class individuals who can't afford college and
use it as a stepping stone.
Yeah, and the Republican Party has been preaching recently about, how we should, kids shouldn't necessarily be going to college. It's not for everybody, and that you're going to go into debt. You should look at other options. To take away the military for that age group would be, I think, would be detrimental to our country as a whole. And I don't think it's worth saving the lives of potential smokers and drinkers.
Well, and I'm fine with that. I'm not necessarily making that argument either. Is what I am saying is that you have to have a single age of majority, right? So that was when the amendment of 18-year-olds got to vote. The reason it was 18 was because that was the age you could drink. That was the age you could join the military. So that's why they made the voting age 18. And then after that became a constitutional amendment, then we moved drinking up to 21. And now we're moving smoking up to 21. Now we're moving. So I'm fine with it being 18.
And that's why I said I'd move it down to 19. Move drinking down to 19 and everything else up to 19.
It's never going to go. It's never going to go down. It's always going to go up. This group of people that are this voting block one, is the only group that transitions to something else. They transition to single parents, they transition to soccer moms, they transition out of that 18, 19, 21, so it doesn't matter to them once they're over 21. For us, I can truly say, you know what, I don't want a 19-year-old to be doing X, Y, and Z, because I remember when I was 18, that's always the argument. And again, there's a larger voting block of those that are over 21 years old.
And I'm trying not to make that argument.
I want to make that argument because they're the ones that are voting the most. Those individuals
I get
between
that,
the age.
I'm saying just from a fairness standpoint, it should be
but
one age.
It doesn't matter with fairness because you have to move two more things and then change the constitution to move to 21.
Well, just move everything back down to 18 then.
No one's going to do that. The government doesn't move things back. They move things up.
You're absolutely right. Once we enact laws, you can, I think John McCain said it about Obamacare, that once you've, created something like that, you can't, but he's like, you can't take it away. And, I think moving it up to 21 has kind of become, the drinking age of 21 has become a rite of passage. I don't think that, I worry that smoking will stand. I mean, I don't think that I just don't think it makes sense, especially with, like, as I've said, with the military.
Sorry, Chris, but my big question is why, right? Why did this come about? Because again, it kind of came out of left field. B, why did it happen so quickly? And C, who are the powers that be behind this, right? Because, again, as you and I know, Chris, stuff like this doesn't just happen. There's always a movement behind it that has to take place for them not to only draft a bill like this, but then to get the support for it, and then certainly for it to pass. And for all of that to have happened so quickly.
It's an easy win.
It was thrown in with the NDAA.
It's an easy win. This group that you're affecting does not vote. So that's why it wouldn't matter. People that are voting want their children to not smoke.
It's a feel-good bill. It's a feel-good bill.
You don't want your children you don't want your high school, I'm sorry for cutting you off. You don't want your children to smoke. The best way for you to do that is to then have the legal age moved up. Will it work? No. People are going to still smoke if they want to do it, the same way people drink before they were 21. It is what it is. However, it's an easy win. It's like texting and driving.
I was just going to say that.
Texting and driving is an easy win.
Yes. We keep talking about this 18-year-old drinking age, and what you guys don't really know, if you look at the stats, when the drinking age was 18, the fatalities from automobile accidents were like in the stratosphere. You had 16-year-olds driving with fake IDs, drinking beer, getting behind the wheel, and that's how you had groups like Mothers Against Drunk Drivers coming out and all. They were a huge part of that drinking age being lifted. So it's a little bit of a public safety thing when you talk about lowering the drinking age, and if you look at the stats, it's
which is why I was
going
thinking,
down, just like Amy well said.
Yes, it'll never go down.
I mean, again, my position here is that there should be one age. If we have to move it up, if we have to move it down, whatever you want to move.
Right, it should be the same standard.
No, it's too much. It's too much paperwork. We're not going to do it.
You like paperwork.
I do, and I think it's going to be too much paperwork to have to rewrite the Constitution. Also, at the time, people were getting married much younger. Lives are starting much sooner.
I think you
the
can have
world
broad
has moved.
support. I think you
post.
could have broad support to move the voting age to 21.
Except for those that are 18 and 19.
Well, right, and they'll take their other subject we're going to talk about later and go protest in the streets. But the for the most part, now how this passed, I mean, it was thrown into the NDAA, National Defense Authorization Act. So someone hid this, and I remember Ted Cruz. He was irate about it. He put out a Facebook Live, and he was. He said they gave them 3 hours to read the entire NDAA, and there was a bunch of stuff hidden in it, like this. This was hidden inside the NDAA, but hey, if you want that money for that Apache, you have to take away smoking from 18-year-olds because that's
which
is
a smaller voting block than the military.
I actually think in our lifetimes we're going to be cigarettes. We're going to see cigarettes illegal and weed will be legal.
Well, it's already headed. Weed's already
like nationwide.
I kind of forget that weed is still illegal, like in a lot of states, like because it's like so many places, like. Well, like, I mean, I was just in in California, and I think Arizona has it for a lot of purposes.
Nevada, it's legal.
Nevada, Colorado, like I was just out west, so every state I went to, it was pretty much legal like recreationally, and it's like you kind of forget, like, and you come back to Florida and you see like a sign in Miami that says weed is illegal. You're like, oh, it
in Spanish and in French.
Yeah.
But what's crazy about this is honestly is that, well, first of all, certainly weed is less harmful than cigarettes or alcohol, and certainly that alcohol is far more dangerous, and kills more people than cigarettes do. So again, if anything should be trending towards becoming illegal, it should be alcohol. It's never going to happen, right? But the truth of the matter is that if you look statistically, the tobacco industry has always gotten a really bad rap, right, for the addictiveness and the health effects of their product. But alcohol has far more severe implications in terms of your health, in terms of the effect it has on society, in terms of deaths, drunk driving, and yet we don't see people going after alcohol the same way they do cigarettes.
I'm actually really happy you brought that up. And it just reminds me of an old Chris Rock sketch where he talks about why isn't alcohol and cigarettes illegal? And he's like, well, because they're made right here. He's like, if marijuana was grown in America, it would be legal. If cocaine was grown in America, it would be legal. But then marijuana did start getting grown in America, and that's when it started becoming legal, when they started growing it in California.
Are we growing cocaine in Manatee County? Didn't we talk about this earlier?
Not legally.
Okay, not legally.
I'll say if we are, I was not aware of it. But no, so it really is when our government looks and goes, hey, we can make enough money off this, and we're not importing it. It's an American-made good. That's when you start seeing that, because Johnny is absolutely right.
Well, it does.
It does.
Look at Colorado.
Exactly. And Johnny's absolutely right that alcohol is so much worse for the body than actually, believe it or not, nearly any drug other than methamphetamine.
Y'all, we're going to lose our demographic. You start attacking red wine. Red and white wine.
Yeah. Over here with a glass of red wine.
They're drinking one now.
We're not saying you can't drink. We're just, saying facts. Enjoy your drinks. Enjoy many of them, in fact. If you would like, just do not drive.
I love
Take
whiskey.
an Uber.
It is what it is.
Jameson.
And I think that's the conversation that's being held, is that the country just needs to get to the point to where it's comfortable with the idea of weed being completely moved off of the illegal and as a substance. I agree with you that a lot of the things that are banned now in our lifetime will no longer be banned, and that's good for the economy, that's good for the nation, it's good for people in general, so that we're able to now focus medical attention for those that are actually having so many difficulties when it comes to using those products. So I think that's where it's going. I don't know how on earth we got to this part when it comes to legalization of marijuana.
Well, it's smoking. We're talking about smoking.
Yeah, but that's not the smoking we're talking about. We're talking about the
No, but it's all in the same ballpark, because again, as marijuana becomes more legal,
because vaping itself is starting to go away.
Well, and the FDA is also about to give the green light to marijuana as a treatment. Substitution. Anyways, so once those things kind of fall into place, then the 21-year-old restriction is going to fall. Apply to smoking marijuana as well. So it's all headed in the same direction. Let's bring up our little menu here of topics as we continue to plow through these. And now
horrible word choice.
We are not playing tricks on you. Cassie had another commitment, so she didn't step out.
No, it's Janet.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. So Janet went.
Good job. Good job.
It's okay. It's all out there on the internet. All I have to go back is a couple episodes, and
we only let him push buttons. That's what we really are here for.
All right, so let's bring up this bad boy over here, as Chris Carter likes to call him, T Daddy. And in the State of the Union, Nancy Pelosi, while holding impeachment papers and holding up a lot of business, has also decided to invite the president to make a State of the Union, as is required, I believe. But anyways, do you think Trump is going to take her up on it? Let's go around the table.
Well, right now, I think he has accepted the invitation. I'm scanning the media here, and I'm looking at a few things, and it says that he has accepted the invitation to do the State of the Union address, I think, on February 4th. Mm-hmm. Now, to me, this is like Guns N' Roses playing the Super Bowl halftime show. because everything that's going to be going on, and you have a polarizing guy, kind of like an Axl Rose figure of I don't give an F, about what the standard was
And
before.
the entire
And the
millennial
whole-
following of the show is gone.
It's gone, man.
Or
Look up
if any
Guns
Gen
N'
Zers
We
are out
lost
there,
the
we lost
USF
them.
area.
Check out this guy named Axl Rose, all you Gen
Any of the ones that we didn't lose with the alcohol ban.
Yeah, everyone was fine with moving to 21.
It's going to be straight up fireworks, and I think the optics
up
of
Port
this,
Richey.
when you see the Speaker of the House, the Vice President all up there in Congress, and Trump's giving the speech, there is nothing that makes liberals cringe more than seeing Trump in Congress addressing the nation, because it's just there. He's the boss. They still can't stand it. And frankly, with everything that's going to be happening as far as this supposed trial that we're supposed to have, who knows where we're going to be? She might not have even decided to impeach him by then.
She might not even be head of the House by that time, because they're going to do re-elections for the House leadership in January is when they come up for elections. So she has to be re-elected as the majority leader for the House.
Nebel, that's a really good point, because didn't she... They were threatening to
she was
remove her
only gonna
leadership.
she said she was only going to do one more year.
Yeah,
and
they
that
were
was it.
threatening to remove her leadership because she was being challenged by all the newcomers, right?
So again, what's going to happen? I have this is my theory. And my theory is that she holds the trial of impeachment paperwork past the State of the Union, because for her to allow that to occur now gets rid of all of the chips on her side, because she can play the card. Look, he's manipulating the system. He is talking to everyone. So now no one is impartial, because the president has basically said everything. He's going to go crazy.
It's a political process. It doesn't have to be impartial.
If he doesn't get the articles of impeachment or she doesn't give the articles to the Senate before the February 4th, it's going to be a shit show. And I'm excited to watch it, because he's going to be on a rant, because he's going to be even more pissed off. And I think that's what she wants. She wants the country to see it unhinged Trump.
I think a lot of people, they always, they go to that first line when the president comes out, and the state of our union is, with all these historic gains we have with low unemployment, strong economic numbers, except we have a divided, polarized politically ideology right now. You're either left or you're right. People are hating people. It would actually take some balls if the president came out and said, the state of our union is weak. Because even though we have the money and we've got the strength economically, we're divided as a nation right now.
But he can't come out and just say it's
Correct.
blatantly weak, because if those are the first words out of his mouth, he's gonna lose a voter base.
Right.
Because
He would
won't say
never.
it like
He'd
that.
I don't
never
think,
do it.
yeah, he wouldn't. And he's,
Nothing's ever bad.
No,
Nothing's
nothing.
ever bad
The State of
unless-
the Union is never bad. It is
He would
never
say-
poor. It's always good. But he can say the state of the Democratic Party is terrible. That's what he can say. He can say that, look, what Republican policies, what my policies have gotten you is the best economy that we have seen in a decade.
Yeah.
But what the Democratic policies are getting you, or what their lack of policy making is getting you, is a sham of an impeachment trial.
But that's the thing. This is going to be Trump's opportunity to get up there and brag. And I think he's got quite a list that he's built up, especially going into an election year. And so it's going to be probably about an hour or so of the Democrats just sitting there on their hands, and they're going to look miserable. And I think it's only going to make Trump look good in the end, especially leading up to the November election.
Vote him out.
it's going to make them look bitter and spiteful.
It depends if she's given the articles of impeachment yet. If she does it at the beginning of the new year, she gets that through the vote. He's not impeached. It's over, and then he'll be able to do a pretty decent job at the State of the Union. If
It would be a huge misplay for her to let him do the State of the Union before she delivers the
That's what I'm saying.
articles of
She's going to
impeachment.
hold it all the way till then, because she's going to make him furious, and that's all she has left. She has no other power. You're gonna strong arm McConnell. The man is 97 years old, has survived 3 wars, and was gonna be able to say no.
I'm gonna float an idea. I'm not sure if it's a good idea yet. But if she hasn't sent the articles over to the Senate, Trump shouldn't do it. He should either do it from the Senate floor, or he should do it from the Oval. Because I think you're right. I think she's trying to play him as unhinged, as mean-spirited, as angry orange man. right? And she's trying to poke him to get that, and then she'll send the articles over to the Senate, and when the Senate acquits, then she'll play it out to the public as, see, these Republican senators didn't do what they needed to do to angry Orange Man, right? So I think it would be, I think it would definitely mark the times a lot more if he did it from the Senate floor, if he did it, you know, I mean, he can do this. But it would be a change of times. No, I think he should.
He shouldn't.
I think we're in a point where doing what we've just always done is you know, I mean, why do it? Why
at the end of the day, you are protecting the presidency, you are protecting the nation,
right?
And you have to show that we're at least a functioning government,
right.
which means that if you're invited as the president, you go. And that's, I get it. I get what you're saying, but I don't agree that he'll do it. I do agree that she's using this as leverage of some kind. I don't think she'll be able to deal with the pressure of not being able to submit the articles when her entire body is wanting for her to do that. I don't think she stands up to the pressure. We saw that she couldn't do it by even starting this fiasco in the first place. So I think she'll bulk and she'll submit before the State of the Union.
Let me rephrase that. I think Trump's opening line should be something like this: the state of our union has never been stronger, except we're in turmoil. You know, I've actually done the State of the Union address before. When my network, that was when I was working for fake news CNN, did it. We were the pool feed. So we were down there, we rehearsed the whole thing and did it. It's actually quite a big deal. Usually averages around 20 million people watching it. It's definitely one of the biggest shows I've ever done. And I can say that it's funny to see some of these congressmen, when you have the aisle, they get down there, they have their aides come and sit in the chairs, right? Days almost before. They reserve those seats so they can come down and they can get the photo of them shaking the hand with the president. You know, there's 455 members of Congress.
Now, Chris, you can just dissect this for me, because in talking about that very thing, we see not only Republicans but also Democrats in this situation, and vice versa. When Obama was in office, you see them clamor for that aisle to get that handshake. I mean, what is it about that moment that makes it so special, or so just what is it about that entrance, that makes them want to be in that spot?
Well, it's about the eyes. It's that 20 million viewership that they'll get. They see, themselves as being not a big political star. Maybe they're from some no-name district in the middle of, Texas or something, and it's really their only chance to kind of get on TV. A lot of the bigger players you don't see. They don't worry about that because the president will see them and kind of shake their hand or call them out or whatever. But it's one of those things where they want to be on TV. Mm-hmm. That's pretty much it.
Not everyone can get invited to the Rose Garden. Not everyone can get their names written on bills. And so I agree with you. It's one of the few places.
Season 1, Episode 1 of House of Cards is proximity to power is power.
Yeah. I mean, even The West Wing talks about this, that's one of the biggest times. And they show that little scene of people clamoring just to get to him when they're at, because that's the only time they ever get the chance. So I'm interested to see what's going to happen. I can't wait to see what he says. I feel that we should do a broadcast that night and just do a commentary and see how what's going to happen for the before and after. Oh, I do all the time.
I
know.
We did it the other day on Livecast
USA. I know. Watching botched earlier.
I was going to say, Chris and I, and you can find the video over on Livecast USA.
Yeah,
Chris and I did
guys.
it. Well, it was an experiment, so we didn't want to put too many eyes on it, but we did a little bit of play-by-play during the Democratic debate, the last one. It was really interesting. I think people really dug it, because we all know what they're going to say. The talking points don't change, and they talk in circles. But when you are able to be there for, let's say, that exchange between Buttigieg and Warren, I mean, that's when the fireworks go off, and that's when it's fun to really dissect those kind of moments.
Yeah, and you know what? Being in there is actually pretty impressive. Somebody somewhere has a picture of me sitting in the Speaker of the House's chair with the gavel. And when we were in there rehearsing for the show, we went down there about a week early, pulled the truck up. I mean, it's right down the street from the Bureau. But what happens is one network is pretty much in charge. And then when you have a team of people that have worked on the Hill for so long, you've got a lot of experience there. So, you're going to be okay. But I remember when we were sitting there, we have all these pictures of us in the speaker's chair up there and everything. And I met someone one day. They said, you're not allowed to go up there and just like take a photo. And we were like, what? Really? He goes, yeah, I've worked there for 20 years and I haven't even had a picture in the speaker's chair. So if anybody's got those out there, Steve Dolce, send them my way, please.
I think no. You know what? I think this should be like the White House. It's the people's chair. You know what I mean?
It's not the people's chair.
That was fun.
It's the people's chair.
Not.
We all look at an
It's
email.
not.
What are you talking about?
It's not.
It's like when you go to Tallahassee. If you go to Tallahassee with a group and you get to go into the House or the Senate, you get to go and stand behind the podium there and where the speaker stands. I don't see anything wrong with that. I don't know. I think we get caught up too much in some of that nonsense.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those
I
things.
want the pomp and circumstance.
Nobody
You would.
Nobody censured us for doing it. You're just kind of
Yeah.
like not supposed to do it.
Talking about the guy who's excited over there about the Royals anytime some news comes out about the Royals.
Just because I'm
Don't
wearing
lie.
royal blue does not.
No,
I
you
am
love the Royals.
I am
I
a
know you
monarchist.
do.
I'm not gonna lie. I am a monarchist.
I know you, my friend. They don't know you like I know you.
What do you think about Prince Andrew?
He should be cut, and he has basically been cut.
He's
from
cut.
everything.
All right, this is wrong continent.
Donald
Yeah.
Trump.
Wrong continent.
Wrong government.
Ugh.
Wrong
We're gonna have
country.
an Evil's attic
The
today.
fact that he's still
God.
breathing is
Yeah.
still really fun.
No,
to
as
know.
it is, we're already over an hour, and so no time for an Evil's Attic today. Sorry, folks. But we'll let his little
I'm
royal
sure
family
they're
rant.
all super disappointed.
Hey, that's so mean.
Let me bring there we go. I'll keep an eye on you guys here in the bottom left. All right, so continuing down the list, we were going to talk about this activism day, but I think we're gonna kick that one over to a future episode. Basically, is it Virginia again?
It's Virginia again. That's why it doesn't matter.
So whatever, it's nonsense. So we're gonna
Move
kick
on.
that one to the next one. 2019 to 2020. Let's kind of wrap up the show with this. Of course, kind of looking back to all the moments, and not that we did a lot of homework on this, but it's, off the top of our heads and an Evil's list, let's see kind of obviously what are the big things that happened that in this year that we're going to still be talking about next year, and what are we looking forward to next year other than the election?
Okay,
we'll
so-
start off with you and Evil. Yes.
So I
Go ahead.
did come up with a list and just wanted to get everyone's feedback because I knew I'd be the only one that makes a list. And so I have winners and losers, and I think we should just start with the losers of this year. And for one of them, I feel, and some of it's culture and some of it's actually political, but one of the biggest ones is the Kamala Harris debacle of a presidential election race. She started in Oakland with 20,000 people in the stands, and she wasn't even able to make it to Iowa. So I think that's one of the biggest
that's a good
losers
one.
of the year. So
Absolutely, yeah. Tulsi Gabbard almost single-handedly took down her campaign, and that was, a feat for it just to go down
It was
in
beautiful.
flames
It's
like that.
beautiful that you
Kamala
have it.
Harris is a phony swamp rat. Everyone knows it.
Yeah.
I agree.
True.
She is a phony. The moment that it was revealed that she was having phone calls to talk about what she believes in and what she stands for, it was like, yeah, she's fake. She's completely fake.
Oh yeah.
So, any other comments about that one?
No, that was a good one. That was a really good one.
So, moving from politics to culture is Jessie Swamoule, the individual the individual that lost his career for faking
It's a good one.
a hate crime in Chicago in the middle of at 2:00 in the morning at 7th degree minus weather, holding a Subway wrap sandwich. It's something that I believe it's almost like the culture wanted that to happen and to be true, and when it didn't, it deflated everything of that culture war. And so I think that was a great moment for to show, look, the country doesn't really hate black people as much as they call it, and at the same time, I guess we're importing Nigerians now for the dirty
For our
work.
hate crimes, yeah. Didn't know we had to do that, but
Chicago, in the middle of Chicago with like mega hats? Are you crazy? We don't even get
the fact that he got roasted for it on that Netflix special, on Dave Chappelle's Netflix special, is just even more just delightful. It's just like absolutely delightful that he got roasted for that, because rightfully so. It's like, that's a good one. That's definitely a good one.
I just think whenever I see him, he's such an arrogant little prick.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, with the sunglasses on in the courtroom and his entourage, I mean, like, who's his public relations firm? He should be down on his hands and knees saying, I'm sorry I've wasted everybody's time. I lied. I've got to go to some type of, care
Rehab,
or rebuilding
yeah.
or something.
Yeah.
If he
Do
would have
this-
done that in the beginning, like a week
Right.
after, been like, okay, guys, yes, it was. I think he could have saved his career.
No,
then
I think it was done.
He could have easily been like, it was a drug thing. It was I was
Oh,
doing
yeah, that's a good
something
excuse, yeah.
to throw it off to where he was able to recapture. But now it's impossible.
Well,
It's
we know
impossible.
that the fact that he was also let off after
Yeah.
lying to the police, after lying to the media, really the world, because it became a national story, and we know that there was absolute corruption involved in Chicago by letting this slide and letting him off as early as he did. There was supposedly an investigation. We knew that wasn't going to go anywhere, but truthfully, I mean, he had some friends, and I think some very important people made a lot of phone calls because he absolutely should have served some jail time for what he did.
Okay, going back to politics is the 3-year conclusion of the Russia investigation. I believe is one of the biggest losers of 2019, and the culmination of what was the DA's name that took the trial? Old white guy that everyone thought.
Robert Mueller.
Robert Mueller.
Okay.
I think that was the moment where everyone was deflated, knowing that what everyone thought he was going to be, they thought he was going to be the white knight, that he was going to be the one that brought down the republic and brought down the president, and it was nothing. You realize that he was just someone pushing paper in DC, and that was the best moment when you realize everyone, he's going to bring him down, he's going to bring the president down, and you're like, there's nothing here.
He was a lifelong Republican anyway. I don't know why so many Democrats that believe that the Republicans never break ranks would put all their hope in him. Like, that didn't make sense to me from the beginning. But, my prediction was either that he was going to bring down, like, everybody except the president, or, like, nothing was going to happen. But he did manage to, he took down so many people. You know, it's just that,
but no one inside the White House.
No one inside the White House. Was Manafort inside the White House?
No.
Or he was the Okay. But the Manafort was the one that at the very beginning of that investigation you looked at and you're like, oh, that guy's going down. There are financial crimes there. So it's, that was very interesting.
I've actually interviewed a lot of these people that were at the center of these investigations. Carter Page, Roger Stone, Jerry Corsi is one that escaped having to bankrupt himself because of this Mueller investigation. We still don't know what's going to happen with Roger Stone. I think what happened with him is complete BS. They're all process crimes. And also Carter Page, he stands to get a serious financial settlement for being slandered through all these digital platforms, Yahoo News, Google, or whatever, and I hope he gets every penny.
Yeah. The last loser for the year, and this does get us over the pond, I'm sorry, is Jeremy Corbyn, the Labor leader.
No, that's fair. That's fair.
The Labor leader of the Brexit vote that just occurred, and his horrible leadership allowed for the conservative movement in the United Kingdom to expand their lead by, I think, 60 or 70 votes, 80 votes actually, and allowed for that to be able to go squarely into the conservative movement. And now it's for sure that Brexit will occur, and the fallout for that, good or bad, I think the people of the United Kingdom gets their country back.
What is it, January 31st?
Good or bad?
Well, when I say good and bad, I mean that the economic ramifications for leaving the euro is substantial. They're going to lose about maybe 100,000 jobs out of London. A lot of banking.
I think their sovereignty is going to pull them out of it.
I agree with that, but I understand both sides of the coin. There is a legitimacy of staying in the EU, and also a legitimacy of getting your sovereignty back. And I agree that there will be losses on.
No, and I think
side.
this is just the crack that's going to just open the whole thing. I think we're going to see more countries leave the EU
if they didn't
following this.
No, they won't. The reason why they won't is because France and Germany will not allow other countries to leave. If they didn't kick out Greece for manipulating their numbers,
that's absolutely true.
Then it's not going to happen at all.
France and Germany and Denmark and a lot of those nations want to keep the EU very strong. Especially the countries that should be the most concerned are the socialist nations, because if the EU, a lot of their economy relies on the EU. So if that were to start cracking, maybe at least for our younger generations, it would be good for them to see what actually happens when a country is truly not that they're really like self-sustaining, but if they had to be away from the EU, what happened, to a socialist economy? And in the brain, especially the brain drain you see.
I'm actually loving this because I think it's taken them way too long, and frankly, they should be able to decide their own fate. And once they strike this big trade deal with the United States, I mean, has that already happened yet?
No, it cannot happen until they officially leave.
Until they officially leave, that President Trump has their back.
Yeah.
We're the biggest economy in the world. They don't have anything to worry about, and I'm against globalism. That's it.
Well, and for conservatives, both here in the United States, I think it is revealed, right, the amount of control that this non-elected government entity has over them, and I think it's, if anything, it's actually helped, as we saw in their recent elections, it helped rally conservatives in the UK, and it turned out big for them in the election, and I think it's been a big wake-up call for them to realize what a bad idea this whole EU thing is.
Okay. Anyone else have any other losers they can think of?
Yes, I do. One big one. R. Kelly. Did you guys hear there's another round of shows coming out? There's another round of shows coming out.
Oh my gosh, I
mean,
love
R.
it.
Kelly, you want to talk about a disastrous interview. Remember with Gayle King?
Yes.
They're trying to kill me, man.
Like Robert.
She was amazing.
Oh, it was the
Yes,
best.
you
It was
did
the
it very
best.
well.
Nailed my impression. Thank you.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
like, yo, dude, I hate to tell you, but your celebrity doesn't work anymore. The switch, people don't believe you,
No one believes anymore. And yeah, I agree. I think it was kind of pushed in the background because it was such a disaster and then people moved on. But I agree, his career has taken a complete nosedive.
Oh, yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see how he recovered, which he won't.
No.
He will not be able to recover from this. He's already having difficulties paying the lawyer fees already. So yeah, I agree. That's a good one. That's a good loser for 2019.
For me, I got two, and I'm very actually unlike me, but they're going to be sports related. So I'm going to go first of all with the obvious, Colin Kaepernick in the NFL. I think they both end up in the lose column because not only has Kaepernick continued to reveal himself for the fraud that he is, and and terrible quarterback that he is, and the NFL for placating to his nonsense and trying to put on this tryout, which ended up blowing up in both of their faces. Now, to his credit, look, the guy continues to make a lot of money, just like Jesse Jackson and Reverend Al Sharpton. They put out
racist.
They put out a line of shoes. Nike put out a pair of Colin Kaepernick shoes that sold out. And you have to wonder how much longer can he ride this wave of lies. I mean, because again, he wants to scream about injustice. He wants to scream about how unfair the NFL and America in general is being towards him. Yet we're talking about a guy who was adopted by an upper middle class white family who had an amazing upbringing, better than most.
2-parent household.
Yeah, exactly. And then, capitalism, which, goes hand in hand with a lot of the injustices that he's claiming, are the ones that are putting out sneakers with his ugly mug on it. So I don't know. That's kind of the first obvious choice for me. I think Colin and the NFL right there, and they kind of deserve each other in misery. But they both had a really rough year.
Who's your other?
The NBA. And their flub with China, I don't think it hit them as hard as it should have. I think it should have been more damaging to the brand, and I think we haven't seen the end of that. I think we're going to see more of this as China continues to be a larger partner to the NBA, but we're learning what was amazing to me is that you have an international organization like the NBA, and they cowered to the Chinese government. And to their lack of free speech policies, and it goes to show you where the NBA's priorities were, and that was with China, and not with free speech, not with the Hong Kong protesters, and not with the American people.
Yeah, and when we found out that more people watch the NBA in China than they have an audience in America, all these business relationships with the NBA came out, and you just saw how they pandered. I agree with you. That was a good one, John.
Well, and you also got to think about the fact that when you talk about, the sneaker companies, when you talk about all the other merchandise, that is produced by the NBA, where do you think all that product's being created?
China.
Exactly. So China. That was a big loss there. Other than that, I think I would go into some of the tech stuff, but that's still all kind of like, in the air. between Facebook and Google,
Yeah, that'll
and
play out in
that's
2020.
Okay,
all.
I have a loser that I want to bring up, and I think one of the big losers for the year has been the mainstream media with CNN and the Project Veritas and what's been going on with Rachel Maddow recently, and people actually calling her out, which is kind of amazing to see that we're looking at the mainstream media. People do not trust it, and most young kids nowadays, a lot of like Gen Zers and millennials, watch more shows like this and more other people's Facebook and YouTube channels. So I really do think that the mainstream media has been losing out big in 2019, and I'll be interested to see what happens in 2020 if they will learn and make any changes, but I doubt it.
Down with the fake news media.
My loser for the year is Nancy Pelosi, because she started the year out from a place of strength. She had just won the end of 2018. She had her blue wave, and she started out her year in a place of strength. And then, she had a couple little tits with the squad.
Couple little what?
Fits.
Sorry.
It's a little bit of an audio malfunction there.
Is it because
Demonetized.
because Nancy Pelosi's a woman, where he's thinking? Couldn't help it.
Banned by YouTube. Thanks, Chris.
But
Not the first time.
no, she had she had some fits, some fights with the squad, and she came out alive from those, and she was able to kind of wrangle the squad into their spot. And I think after the Mueller report came out and they were like, yeah, no, this isn't going to yield anything, I think that gave the squad a lot of strength. And as soon as Ukraine happened, as soon as they had anything to go on, the squad was screaming for impeachment, and she jumped on the bandwagon because and I think that's honestly, it's just been a snowball effect from there, is when she said, hey, we're going into impeachment inquiry, without even holding a vote. And she made up her mind, and the rest of the Democratic, caucus was like, oh, okay, the speaker's on board, you get in line. Because once she made up her mind, they go where she goes, because she's the leader.
It really is Pelosi, Schiff, and Nadler that have done the most to damage the republic, I do feel, and they are definitely the losers. To see, and I'm upset the fact that they're in such blue districts that they're never going to get unelected.
Oh, yeah. Well, when you look at their district, I just wonder if the common person out there is not as politically savvy as us knows. When I see Adam Schiff, I see Beverly Hills and Hollywood. When I see Nancy Pelosi, I see San Francisco. When I see Jerry Nadler, I see the Upper West Side of Manhattan. I see these neighborhoods that they represent, and they are such a small portion of what the country is really about. It's a shame what they've done to this country.
And that's why we have to, at the end of the day, get them out of power, out of the House. We might not be able to elect them out of their districts, but we have districts in the Tampa Bay area that we could flip when it comes to congressional districts, District 13, and some of the other ones that we can definitely move and have. Again, we're only 30 seats away from taking back the House.
Well, another thing, that I don't understand is Maxine Waters. Her district is South Central Los Angeles, which is primarily Latino. Why do Latino voters keep voting for her? Why is that? It makes no sense to me.
I think it goes back to political stereotypes. It goes to a lack of information, lack of education, and low turnout. Honestly,
I think that was all good answers.
It's the same problem that Latinos have all over the place, but it's the same reason why I think we're seeing the pendulum swing a little bit back towards conservatism and Republicans among that community, is because as they become a larger voting bloc, and as the generations begin to evolve within the country, we're seeing it go the opposite way, where a conservative bloc like the Cuban community, especially here in Florida, as they go into second generation, third generation, they start to trend Democrat. I think as Latinos become more educated, as they certainly have always been very entrepreneurial and acclimate themselves to the political environment here in the United States, they're educating themselves, especially when you look at what's happening in Texas. When you look at the Hispanic turnout in Texas, and a lot of them do vote Republican, and they're very conservative in Texas. Why? Because they see those practices in place. Same here. as the Puerto Rican community has become more educated on what parties stand for what, we're starting to see more of them register and vote on the Republican side.
Okay. Now, for winners of 2019, I think I will go off and not say the president right now, but I will say, I'll say protesters. 2019 was a huge year for protesters, and not just in the United States, but around the world. Protesting in India for the citizenship test, protesting in Chile for decentralization of their governments, Libya, Iran, Bolivia overthrowing their government. So this year was Hong Kong. I know I was going to get to Hong Kong. Is a huge year of seeing people that are protesting. And I don't want to use the word correctly, but they're protesting to get their rights back, not for their rights to be taken away. I think that's a huge difference that you see in the United States with protesters in the United States and protesters around the world. They're fighting for their freedom in the majority of countries around the world, whereas protesters in the United States want the government to take over their freedoms. And that's something that should be, those are the differences. So I don't bring into the U.S. protesters. I always think of them differently because they're not protesting to get their freedoms back. They're protesting for the government to take their freedoms.
Well, it's first world problems.
Yeah.
When you're protesting in the first world, that must be nice, because when you're actually protesting everywhere else in the world, there's a consequence, because you're not necessarily allowed to even protest, so you're actively taking a political risk by going out there and saying, no, I need the right to at least say what I think, to object to what is going on here. And in the first world, we have that. In the United States, we have that. And when you get together to protest plastic straws, by comparison, these are two very different things.
It's a stark juxtaposition, between protesting to, obtain, the right to vote freely, the right to organize, and just the protesting, the right to protest. And in the United States, we're like, hey, can you ban straws? Can you ban vapes? Can you infringe on my rights? And it's, infringe on my, rights to do, really as I please, or add more laws in. Whereas in other countries, they're like, can we get the government more out of here?
In the United States, we use the protest to demand the government attack our political rival. Correct. Instead of having a conversation. Correct. Whereas I think in most other areas of the world, you band together with your fellow people against your government because your government is infringing on your rights.
And I'll say, I do want to say, I think that has been something that has been more recently, because in the 60s, a lot of the groups that were protesting in order to say, hey, the government needs to get out of my rights. But this has been in, recent years, groups that have never been, oppressed in really any way, shape, or form are protesting to have the government now
attack their political rivals. It's being used as a
exactly,
And that's why I think a lot of people that grew up in the 60s, grew up in the 70s, that saw that, don't look at what's happening now as anything. Yeah. It's just a bunch of kids that are throwing a temper tantrum. Yeah, I hear my parents that grew up in New York during those times. They're like, that was real. Like, they were struggling. There were situations where people were dying in the streets, where now one person gets injured, or someone, I think one person died in some protest in California, and shit hit the fan. Whereas you're losing, what was it, in Iran during the protest, 600 people died, thousands were arrested. Chile, I think 45 people died in those. People died. India, over 100 people died in those protests. And that's just the beginning, that they just keep on fighting.
Yeah, and it's not. It's a lot of times in protests in the United States, you have the issue of you have protesters and counter protesters. Mm-hmm. So it becomes this bloody situation in the streets. Whereas everywhere else around the world, if you have a protest, the person who's bloodying the protesters is the government. Not counter protesters. I mean, it's such a that's a good one.
Yeah, I truly think that the U.S. we've matured enough as a democracy, as a republic, to be able to have civilized conversations like we're having here, and we've brought Democrats and other people that think differently onto this program, and I think that's there. a lot of people now that claim to be progressives and liberals don't know how to argue with other people, how to discuss with other people. And they're pulling out, well, now they're just angry and they want to protest because they don't know how to express themselves. Because now they're seeing, what? Trump won? I was told that no Republican was ever going to win the presidency ever again after Obama. You literally heard that coming out of people. And you're like, that doesn't make any sense. Of course the pendulum is going to swing.
All right. I'll jump in here. And I'll just say a big winner, not only so far in 2019, but also in 2020, I think is going to be the state of Florida. We continue
That was going to be mine.
Oh, I knew it. That's why I stole it. No, I'm just kidding. But we're bucking the trend economically. We're below the national average on unemployment. We have a very different leadership under Ron DeSantis. It's refreshing. And that's not a knock on Rick Scott. It's just a very different form of leadership, a very different look and perspective on Florida. Came in with a very different agenda than we've seen from, again, a Republican in a long time.
Which is healthy.
And it's absolutely healthy. And so, we got a lot going on, between the growth that we're seeing here in Tampa Bay, and of course the theme parks in Orlando and tourism in general continues to grow. We're seeing a lot of infrastructure improvements happen across the state, and I would say the Super Bowl again. We kind of take these things for granted, but Miami going to host the Super Bowl again this coming year, and it's going to feature 2 Latina women in the halftime show. I think that's a huge deal. I think it's very representative of the state, even though J-Lo, technically from New York, and Shakira, from Colombia. But I think it's very representative of who we are. And again, the economic impact on having an event like that, not only in South Florida but across the state, is going to be pretty massive. So
actually, having a New York transplant and a Colombian immigrant in Miami is like the most Miami thing that you have. And like importing
it really
them,
is.
that is the city of Miami. Period. So I think they hit the nail on the head with that one.
So what were the points you were going to make on Florida, Michelle?
I was going to say Ron DeSantis having not just one, but been doing such a great job, and I have personally been pleasantly surprised. I think he's made a lot of strides for the environment. And I think that, you already kind of hit it with Tampa Bay, growing and changing so much. Like I saw an article that USF has moved up to be the 44th best university from, it was 101st when I would have started going there 10 years ago.
Well, the whole state university system has seen a huge boost in rankings nationally and even internationally.
Exactly. So it's like, hearing that is so exciting for the state of Florida because, it really does, make me feel like, when I decided to stay in state and go to college, like I made the right decision. And, it's like, it wasn't just, because, obviously when you make those decisions, you're doing it, a lot of kids in Florida because of the money and because of Bright Futures, but it makes you look at it and go, hey, this Bright Future system really is working. And Amber Mariano, she was able to get, she worked on the Bright Futures bill, getting it back to a full 100%. So, you tip your hat to her and say, that's absolutely great. And, you're really doing, a great service for, the entire Tampa Bay and the state of Florida.
Well, just like Rick Scott was the right governor for the time that he served, I think Ron DeSantis is going to be the right governor for the time that he's serving in, because again, we needed a jobs governor in Rick Scott, especially during the economic downturn and getting the state back on track fiscally. And now we're able to shift our focus back to the things that make Florida what it is. Great education, great environmental policy. People come here because of our environment. Even if you're coming to Disney, you're coming because the weather's phenomenal. You're coming because you're going to get to go, maybe start your day off at the theme parks and end it in a pool or in a hot tub. You know what I mean? Like, people come here, for the beaches. They come here for, all the hiking and the nature, and so we needed somebody who was going to reshift our focus and priorities back on our natural environment. So
I also like the idea of having a Republican governor talk about climate change issues.
Yeah.
And they're talking about environmental.
In a constructive way, yeah.
In the way the Republicans should be talking
Right.
about it. And that's why I think we really needed someone from one of the big states to take that mantle and push forward that. Again, I tell this all the time to my liberal friends. It's not that we don't want the same thing for the country. We just have different ways of achieving the goals that we want. And that's what Republicans are when it comes to climate change and when it comes to keeping the natural preservation of our beautiful state. Anyone else with other wins for 2019?
Yeah, I have some,
Go for it, Chris.
some people. It's more of a group of people, and I think I'm looking at a few of them right here. Internet streamers. Never before in history, and I can speak as being an ex-member of the mainstream media, have I been more proud to be affiliated and align myself with people that are using this cutting-edge technology to get their voices out, to get heard, to inform the public of the issues of what's going on, and basically combat fake news media. And it's an interesting time we're living in, and it's only going to get bigger. So kudos to all of you. Subscribe to livecastusa.com.
Yes.
I got one more big winner for 2020 actually, and that's
Who is-
Michelle Sassooni and Jake Hoffman.
Yeah.
Oh man. Hold on, let me get the right camera up here. Yeah, these guys gonna be tying the knot next year,
And we're all invited to the wedding.
that's right.
Yeah.
And we're gonna live stream it.
You guys are,
And,
you guys are all, you're all invited to our wedding. I think we might change the location. Yeah, we explicitly do not want a big wedding, so that's the joke. So
So we're inviting the entire internet.
Do you have anyone else?
Stream it.
I know.
man,
Any
you're putting
winners?
some pressures on my vows
I know,
here,
I
right?
know.
They better be good.
I mean-
I better cry.
So, Chris Licata.
Yeah, winners. I mean, Trump.
Yeah.
T Daddy.
Trump has he has focused, and I would say for the most part he has stayed on message this year, more so than last year, and ignored a lot of the bait that has been thrown out there, and just really focused on getting the trade deals, focused on. And it's interesting because this is the year that he doesn't have a chief of staff. He has an acting chief of staff, Mick Mulvaney. So either Mick Mulvaney's doing a really great job, or it's just he's finally gotten into a groove with the job where he doesn't have, he's trolling. Don't get me wrong, he trolls all day long, but he's not purposely getting into fights that he doesn't need to get into this year. That he's trying to stay on message. I think trying more so than last year. So
I agree. And then the last one for me is the U.S. economy is roaring. Now that we're about to enter into a new decade in the 20s, and everyone's really talking about the roaring 20s, there's a lot of conversation about our economic development, what's happening with the economy, and if we can keep on going with this expanded growth, which is which is now a decade in the making. A lot of people are making comments that they don't think it's going to happen. However, having the right president in at the right time is definitely encouraged to increase the accuracy of the economy, and having President Trump, someone that is not dealing with regulation, that's deregulating a lot of industries, that is keeping the corporate taxes and national taxes low, is exactly what the country needs. And we could push for another 10 years if we wanted to. I think a lot of economists are very biased when they talk about the U.S. economy, because there were some talk, and the guy won a Nobel Peace Prize this year, Paul Krugman, about Nobel Economic Peace Prize, about how he felt that the stock market was going to crash the day after Trump got elected, which was the complete opposite. So when people are talking about the economy, take it with a grain of salt when it comes to what their biases are, because we are biased in politics, and people are very biased when it comes to the economy. You have Democrats that are asking for a recession because they knew it would harm the president, and that's just not. You're no longer acting the best of the nation if you're wanting a recession to hurt the president. So I think that's something that is definitely trending forward with a tremendous innovation, and I would love to see another boom in as we enter a new decade.
All right. On that note, just a quick note of congratulations to State Representative Amber Mariano, who has been recently engaged. What, today?
Today, a few hours
Today, yeah. To a gentleman by the name of Scott Davis. So much happiness to them. And, I think one of the cool things, certainly about our state legislature, is that we do have so many young legislators, offering a very unique perspective, not only from the parts of the state that they're from, but also, given their age and life experience. I think it makes for an interesting balance in the legislature. So, but again, congratulations to Amber Mariano from Polk County.
Pasco.
I'm sorry, Pasco. Sorry, I got her confused with Josie Tomkow,
Pasco
who's part of that under 30 legislators club. Amber Mariano, Pasco, Josie Tomkow, who I wouldn't be surprised if she got engaged soon too. But that's just my speculation.
Don't push your cisgender normities on them.
Oh yes,
is that what it be? I have no idea what I said.
I
think you're right though.
I have no idea. I have no idea.
For 2020, thank you everybody who's been watching, this year, and we've only got, plenty of room to grow for next year. And this show is going to do just that. We've got a lot of exciting people who want to come on the show, who've already committed to coming on the show early next year. And so it's definitely going to be a show to watch. But again, please reach out to us through any of our social media platforms. If you have any feedback, commentary, suggestions for the show, we love you watching. We appreciate you. Only thing we ask is that you subscribe and you comment, review. Right, that's how we get other eyeballs on us. But we definitely look forward to continuing to bring you this show through the 2020 election year. And again, I can't thank you enough for allowing this to happen. Thanks to my friends here. I'll mention them this once by name, but Cord Zoen has been a huge benefactor for the show that has made this show a possibility. And so big thanks to him. And again, we hope to continue to bring you shows throughout 2020. Please send us your comments, your feedback, or certainly keep an eye out for us, because I think in 2020, one of the things we're definitely going to do is take this show on the road. So that's going to be an exciting element to the show for next year. Any last thoughts, everybody? Goodbyes.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Share and subscribe.
Free Taiwan. The elections for Taiwan is January 11th. I'm super excited because if they vote the way I think they're going to vote, they're going to piss off China, and that's all I want to see. I'm very excited for that. Also, happy 2020.
Yeah. Woo.
All right. And thanks, Chris, for being on the show as well.
Relax. I was already done. I was already like, I'm good.
I just wanted to catch you off guard. All right.
Thanks, man.
And as always, thanks to the Tampa Bay Young Republicans, who are a big part of this show. Jake Kaufman, who will most certainly be back for the next episode. But for more information on them, look up the Tampa Bay Young Republicans online at tbyr.com or any of the social media platforms out there. Thank you so much for watching. Hey, you keep it down over there, you too. So long, everybody.
Free
Bye-bye.
Taiwan.